Secret of the Mimic was awesome, not only in terms of environment and atmosphere, but also in the tragically horrific story it conveys. A couple of weeks ago, I made a video going over the timeline of everything important we see in game, presented as a story told in chronological order. However, given that this is FNAF, Secret of the Mimic comes with many mysteries and holes in the story, waiting to be filled by theorizing. And while the broader implications that this game holds for the grander lore of the series are surely strange, I'm here to say that I think many of the mysteries and unanswered questions embedded into the game can be solved in a pretty self contained manner, as in we can find the missing gaps of the story within the story itself. Are the solutions to the Mimic secrets actually pretty simple? I think they might just be. I'm the man behind the hat, and let's investigate a story. I've got a list of the major questions that Secret of the Mimic poses throughout the story, serving as small mysteries to think about even after completing the game. We'll take a look at each one in detail on the conspiracy board, seeking to procure the missing pieces from the surrounding context and other information available within the game. While, of course, tangible evidence will be provided to back up the claims, a lot of these story beats I genuinely believe are delivered to us through narrative implications, messages that I believe the framework of the story itself is communicating in order to help us read between the lines. This is a fictional story, which means clues are specifically designed in place, allowing us to approach a lot of them from the perspective that they are intentionally crafted to hone in on a specific point. A lot of the simplicity I claim to be involved with solving the self contained Secret of the Mimic mysteries stems from this approach. First, let's begin with the event that arguably serves as the catalyst for the domino effect of tragedy that goes on to wreak havoc in the Murray family: Fiona's death. Fiona is the wife to Edwin Murray, the inventive genius behind many of the technological feats infesting Murray's costume manor. The general nature of Fiona's death should be pretty clear from these two audio recordings.
Ed, I hope this message reaches you as soon as you get a break. I have to go help the Fall Fest crew, just for a few days until the installation is finished. It's hard to explain. I just have this terrible feeling like I need to be there so nothing goes wrong. Just in case. Trisha will babysit David while I'm gone. I love you both, and I'll be back next week.
Oh, why did you go? You weren't even supposed to be there. You were supposed to be here with me and David.
Fiona goes to Fall Fest, to which Edwin immediately laments that she wasn't even supposed to be there. Clearly, Fiona dies at this ill-fated festival, but how? Well, the Moon.exe program found in the Helper terminals answers this question through a couple of statues that are clearly meant to represent Edwin and Fiona. Within this decision-based game, a lot of what we see is obviously a metaphor for characters and events in the real FNAF world. So when we see a pair of statues, one said to be a groom and the other the bride, it only stands to reason that they embody the married couple present within the game's story. When observing the statues, Moon.exe makes a point to say that the bride is charred as if enduring a fire. The implication here is clear. Fiona's death was the result of a fire that took place at the Fall Fest. As of now, the root cause of the fire could be realistically anything, ranging from a tragic accident to a malicious act. Perhaps we'll learn more information on this event in a future Steel Wool game. Personally, I'd love to see a type of Fall Fest DLC for Secret of the Mimic like what Ruin did for Security Breach. Following Fiona's death, we have an adjacent mystery. Why exactly the M1 program was able to mimic her seemingly perfectly. Edwin developed this mimic machine initially to be a sort of babysitter for David, as he says when he introduces his organic child to his mechanical one.
David, I want to introduce you to someone. This is M1.
Why does it look like that?
Look like what?
It's scary.
Oh, it's an endoskeleton. It won't always look like this. It'll wear fun costumes.
Like what?
Anything you want. It can fit into any costume we've created. Think of it as your new babysitter. But it doesn't get paid and go home. It'll stay with us and help around the house.
However, M1 adopts a persona so similar to Fiona that Edwin plays into the illusion that the endoskeleton really is his dead wife, even going so far as to have it legitimately replace David's mother in many ways. The M1 program doesn't seem to have been truly developed until after Fiona's death, so it's not like the machine received much influence from the genuine article. Furthermore, after Edwin begins developing the second iteration of the Mimic, known as the M2 program, he can't necessarily explain why he can't replicate his apparent success with the previous model.
Project update. I figured it out. There's a leak. Someone told them about M2. Well, they can't have it. Every copy has failed. I don't even know why it worked the first time. But it did. It's just not ready.
Even Edwin is unsure of what sets M1 apart to the point that he is struggling to replicate it in M2, something that we know started as a copy of M1. So what is the difference here? What makes M1 so special? I think the answer we are meant to come to is that at least part of Fiona's soul, or whatever you want to call it, inhabits the program itself. But most of the game clearly centers around rogue artificial intelligence and feats of engineering. So in order to give this idea credibility, we first need to explore a different question. Is there paranormal activity truly at the edges of the MCM? Simply put, I believe there has to be. Let's look at the most blatant example that is basically forced upon the player to notice: the creepy white tiger mascot that haunts Arnold, the player character. A couple of times throughout the game, this white tiger appears without warning, often accompanied by a type of ghostly audio, before immediately blipping out of existence. This kinda has to be either an induced hallucination of some kind or a literal ghostly apparition, as teleportation isn't exactly characteristic of robots. This is hammered home during one of the dark basement levels where the main antagonist becomes the white tiger mascot. It moves through the darkness with unnatural speed, and distorts Arnold's vision if he looks at it too long, eerie children's laughter even accompanying its presence. All of this is indicative of some kind of haunting. Furthermore, there are moments where Arnold seems, at least to me, to be overcome with an otherworldly type of dread. I know that Arnold has plenty of material reasons around him to be freaked out, but the fact that he sounds this terrified during even moments of peace in the game, it feels to me like he's experiencing a classic case of sensing the paranormal through some unidentifiable sixth sense that makes you overwhelmed with pure dread. We'll get back to talking about this white tiger mascot soon, but let's get back to our pin in the Fiona conversation first. Now that we know there is ample precedent for paranormal phenomena occurring within the MCM, it is more reasonable to draw the connection between Fiona's death and the success of M1 being the result of some kind of spiritual attachment. But the proof for this idea goes deeper, when finding a secret audio log hidden in a room tucked within the bowels of the dark basement.
Recording? Test, test. Levels are good. This is where I heard it. It's her or someone that sounds like her. Set frequency to 4625. Hello? Hello? Is anyone there? Over. Say something. It's me, Edwin. Over.
Clearly, this is Edwin detecting some sort of speech from Fiona, a dead woman at this point. This very much seems to imply that some form of her incorporeal being is present within the MCM. Furthermore, this room is full of endoskeleton designs used for the Mimic, drawing a connection in our minds between the presence of Fiona's ghost and the construction of Mimic technology. Simply put, I believe after dying in a fire at Fallfest, some form of Fiona's wandering soul made it back to the MCM and attached itself to the M1 program Edwin was designing to essentially replace her in the family, causing the Mimic program to be an excellent facsimile of the inventor's late wife. This would add increased depth to M1's apparent sincerity for loving Edwin and David with real emotion to some degree. But speaking of the ghostly presence, the White Tiger mascot is strange, as we don't really see a true physical counterpart to the costume-like thing in the manor. However, what we do know is that David's favorite toy that he received for his first birthday is a white tiger plushie. We also know that David is dead, making him a candidate for potential haunting. It seems only like a reasonable connection to link the ghostly qualities of the white tiger mascot to the deceased boy that loved the plushie version of it. This would make for, in a twisted way, the entire Murray family being present in the MCM to some degree, even after Edwin lost his two immediate family members: Fiona's spiritual and technological amalgamation, and David's wandering spirit, manifesting as a white tiger at the edges of the manor. Speaking of, the exact nature of David's death isn't explicitly stated in the game. We know that in the universe of the Tales from the Pizzaplex books, David meets his demise when he chases after his ball into the road, a van tragically taking him out as a result. While the games are clearly in a different continuity thanks to vital differences in the timeline clearly displayed in Secret of the Mimic, remembering these broad details are important to understand what pre existing context a consumer of FNAF may be expected to know. In the games, we can be sure that David died on his 5th birthday, as Edwin is highlighted as saying he left him out alone at the playground that was constructed for him the year prior, and he is never seen again afterwards.
This is great. He's gonna love it. Fiona, did you make this?
I baked it myself for David's special day.
Great job. You just continue to surprise me. All right, I think we're ready. Okay, everyone hide. Fiona, go get him. I left him out at the playground.
The game sets up concern about the placement of the playground prior to watching this reel, through a conversation Edwin is having with his lawyer.
Look, I get your concerns. I do. But they're all just groundwork. This is the perfect spot for David's playground. I can watch him play while I'm loading and unloading freight, and he'll be under watch at all times up there. The loading dock is like 200 feet away, and there's a fence and everything. I know you're my lawyer and all, but there's no regulation that says I can't have it there, so just get off my back. Besides, David loves the new slide. It'll be fine.
This evidently exists to draw attention to the fact that the playground could have played a vital role in David's demise. A simple assumption, given the context of the books, the deliberate showing of David's ball on his 4th birthday, and the talk of the proximity of the playground in relation to the loading bay, would be that David died in a vehicle-related accident in the game's universe as well. While I do think this is a fine enough assumption, there is something else in the game that has me convinced of a different theory for how David Murray met his end. Beneath the retail showroom, in a secret area that one does not need to visit to beat the game normally, but must find in order to achieve the secret ending, we see why the moon display has been in shambles in the storyteller room. The moon display itself plummeted down, smashing a hole up above the area we now find it in. Within it is a present that the player uses to find the collectibles that are used for unlocking the secret ending, and this particular present is home to David's ball. I find this to be a very intentional placement of an object that we already know is directly correlated to David's death in previously released media. It would make sense to me if this is to imply that David died here, crushed beneath the falling moon display. The event would fit the randomness that M1 applies to it in her message to Edwin.
Edwin, it doesn't make sense. It's terrible, and there's no logic behind it. It happened, and you have to deal with it. You did it before. We can fix things together. I am here to help.
In the secret ending, we also hear the voices of Edwin and Fiona telling a story, that being the trigger for reverting M2 back to the childlike state of David, drawing a distinct connection to a love for stories that David may have. So here's how I propose his death unfolded. David is left unattended at the playground by his father on the day of his 5th birthday, and decides to mischievously explore the MCM, slipping in through one of the openings while no one is paying attention. He seeks out his favorite room, the Storytime showroom, where in a freak accident the moon display crashes down, killing him with the impact that plummeted downward below the retail showroom, his ghostly form taking on the apparition of the white tiger, his favorite toy, and haunting the edges of the MCM. And while we're down here, I suppose we should mention this abomination. This moon mascot here is quite the oddity for a number of reasons. He doesn't quite fit the profile of the typical mimic inhabited suits and animatronics we know. The techie sounds aren't quite the same, and the lullaby it sings comes out in a generally clear voice, free of the glitches or robotic spike that the mimic occasionally emits while speaking throughout the other areas of the game. This has led to different beliefs about the exact nature of this animated moon mascot. Some have said that after Edwin was killed by M2, he possessed the moon suit, but that has minimal evidence beyond correlating the fact that Moon.exe draws somewhat of a parallel between the moon and Edwin's role in the family. Furthermore, if the moon suit is what this text log is referring to when talking about trapping something inhuman down there, then Edwin would have had to be alive to do that, making that theory impossible. Although it's not certain that's what the log is referring to, as some have posited it was a mimic that Edwin sought to trap down there. While it would give Edwin a fate after death that intersects with physical reality like the other two members of the Murray family, I find myself uncomfortable with the solution to the identity of the operator of the moon suit. Another idea out there is that an employee who starved to death after getting trapped in the broken elevator down there possessed it, which is possible. Given that text log specifically mentioned an employee getting trapped and feeling hungry, it would serve as a complete little side story going on in the MCM. I suppose this is a good enough answer, if not a little anticlimactic for the entity roaming an area that I believe has great significance to the lore. A different, simple answer I've heard is that this is indeed just the M2 endoskeleton inside the moonsuit. After all, with the gaping hole up top and the impeccable capability to follow us anywhere in the manner that M2 has displayed, it's not impossible that this is just a very unique instance of M2 inhabiting a mascot costume. Under this theory, it could have picked up the lullaby it sings very accurately at some point and is simply repeating it very well and articulately. I'm going to be honest, I'm not married to any one theory surrounding this guy, so I'd love to hear your thoughts on it in the comments. The last thing I want to mention in this video is the multiple endings of the game. If you want to see a detailed explanation of the events that occur in the three alternate endings, please check out my big timeline video on Secret of the Mimic. For now, I just want to go over what I find to be the most likely to be the canon ending, the one that actually occurred in our story. The theme of this video has thus far been utilizing evidence from within Secret of the Mimic itself to maintain simplicity, and under this process, I think it can be pretty reasonably assumed that Parachute.exe is the true ending of the game. It reveals the most about the characters and the surrounding story, as well as finishes itself off with a fire that can burn away potential issues with the existence of some of the things seen in the Fazbear Project area. The information this ending gives us access to isn't just extra content either. It is vital to understanding the entirety of the game's story, which I think is a strong enough point in and of itself to be reasonably sure that Parachute.exe is the canon ending. And that is everything I want to talk about in this video. You'll notice that I avoided talking about these incredibly puzzling notes, as I want to include them in a different theory video I have coming up for the FNAF series, as well as some of the weirder points of the Moon.exe game, which I want to perhaps give a dedicated video to as well. And of course, there's always the broader implications of the rest of the FNAF timeline that this game could have that can be talked about ad nauseum. Subscribe to watch any of this upcoming content if it interests you, and perhaps become a member to support the channel and get access to my growing library of audiobook content of my novel writing for only $4 a month. You can also find the physical versions of my books on Amazon if you enjoy reading. If you like chatting and theorizing, feel free to join my Discord server to interact with myself and other viewers directly. As for now, that will conclude this story, and until next time, the unknown persists, so the investigation continues.